Ready to unlock your notary potential and boost your income? It's time to move beyond basic notarizations. In Notary, Niche Navigator by Derrick Spruill, learn the most profitable specialized services. Learn to master high-demand areas like loan signings, international apostilles, and I-9 employment verifications. This essential guide offers new ideas to help you become the go-to expert in your field. Grab your copy of Notary, Niche Navigator by Derrick Spruill today and start building your empire.
Welcome to Notary Knowledge, everybody. And before we get started, be sure to check out our video podcast, No Notary, with Eddie Montes Travis. And, you can also catch Marylyn's 90 Seconds of Notary online.
Yeah, there is just a ton of great content out there for you guys.
Absolutely. So since today is Money Making Monday, we are looking at maximizing revenue on your existing travel routes. We're doing a full exploration of the process server add-on.
Which is such a brilliant strategy. I mean, you're already out there driving, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So think about it like this. Imagine, if you will, a truly high-end restaurant. They source the finest ingredients. The chefs are world-class. The plating is just absolute perfection.
Oh, yeah, the whole premium experience.
Right. But then when it comes time for delivery, they just, hand their culinary masterpiece over to some random unvetted third-party driver. And that driver might take an hour, hit every pothole in the city, and, well, eventually leave the food stone cold on the front porch.
Which completely ruins the entire experience.
Exactly. It ruins it. The kitchen did everything right, but the final outcome is still a total disaster.
Because that final mile, that final delivery, was just completely out of their control. The quality of the prep doesn't matter if the delivery fails.
So what does a smart premium restaurant do in that situation? They launch their own exclusive delivery fleet. They cut out the middleman, eliminate the friction, and offer this premium end-to-end service where they control the quality from the kitchen right to the dining room table.
Which is exactly the business pivot we are analyzing today, but in the legal world.
Yes, integrating private process serving into an existing mobile notary practice. And our mission with this analysis is to look at the industry frameworks and really figure out why this dual service model is so powerful.
Yeah, we're going to get into the intense, often totally fragmented legal red tape, the technology you need to track down evasive defendants because they will hide, and how to, properly price and protect this really lucrative business.
And whether you're a legal professional looking to streamline your workflows, or you're a notary who's, looking to aggressively scale, or even just someone fascinated by the hidden logistics of the legal system, this is for you. We are looking at the hidden machinery of how lawsuits actually get off the ground.
Because without that physical delivery, without formal service of process, the American legal system basically just grinds to a halt. I mean, a judge can't hear a case if the defendant hasn't been properly notified.
Right. But before we get into the heavy tech stack and the surprisingly complex insurance stuff, let's talk about why these two specific professions are such a natural fit. Because on the surface, sitting at a desk, stamping a document, and knocking on a stranger's door at dawn, they feel like completely different skill sets.
They look different visually, sure, but the underlying mechanics, the core competencies are virtually identical. Both mobile notaries and process servers require, rigorous, uncompromising identity verification.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at a scenario like Chloe out in Arizona. She was talking about how incredibly meticulous she has to be with checking an ID photo just to notarize a standard form. You have to be perfect.
Exactly. And both jobs demand strict statutory compliance, super detailed record keeping, and, high geographical mobility.
They're essentially professional rule followers who work out of their cars.
That's a perfect way to say it, yeah. Now, think about this from a law firm's perspective. They process massive amounts of paperwork. Every time a paralegal has to hand a file from a document clerk over to a notary, then to a courier, and finally to a completely separate process-serving company.
That's a lot of steps.
It is. They create what the industry calls administrative handoffs.
And every single handoff introduces the potential for human error.
Right. Delays, lost files, miscommunications. By combining these services, you completely eliminate those handoffs. You become a single, highly accountable, end-to-end partner. The paralegal makes one phone call, and it's handled from signature all the way to delivery.
Which makes perfect business sense. But the regulatory reality of actually executing this, that's where things get incredibly complicated. Because becoming a notary is usually a pretty standard statewide commission.
Yeah, it's fairly uniform.
But process serving. The legal frameworks we're reviewing show a patchwork of state laws that is honestly staggering. You aren't just following one simple set of rules.
Far from it. It's highly fragmented. You have to comply with the civil procedure rules of the court where the lawsuit is filed, plus the state laws where the physical service actually takes place.
So if I'm a dual commission notary and process server, am I operating under completely different rules in, like, New York versus California?
Oh, entirely different. In California, if you serve more than 10 documents annually, you have to formally register with the county clerk. You need a $2,000 surety bond, and you have to clear state and federal background checks.
Wow, so they treat it with high scrutiny.
Very high. But then Texas approaches it differently. They require a rigorous 7-hour civil process course approved by the state to get a statewide certification. Arizona, on the other hand, makes you pass a really tough written exam testing your civil procedure knowledge.
That sounds somewhat organized, at least.
Yeah.
But you mentioned New York. How does that compare?
New York is the perfect example of how hyper-localized this gets. If you're inside the 5 boroughs of NYC, you need a specialized license from the Department of Consumer Affairs.
Strict bureaucracy.
Right. But drive just north of the city limits to upstate New York, those regulations basically vanish. Anyone over 18 who isn't a party to the lawsuit can serve papers. And Florida is even wilder, operating entirely county by county. Court certified in one county, sheriff appointed in the next, complete with different local exams.
Okay, I have to push back here for a second. I get that jurisdictions differ, but if a notary is already great at checking IDs and stamping complex financials, isn't handing someone a stack of papers the easy part? Why the background checks and bonds just to deliver an envelope?
Well, that's the misconception that gets new servers in a lot of trouble. You aren't just delivering mail. You are executing a critical phase of due process. And the rules are entirely dictated by the specific type of document you're holding.
Give me an example of how the document changes the job.
Okay, take a subpoena for a witness to appear in court. In a lot of jurisdictions, you can't just hand them the paper. The subpoena is only valid if it's accompanied by calculated witness fees.
Like actually paying them.
Literally handing them a check for their travel mileage and time. If you miscalculate that fee, or you forget to hand it over at the exact moment of service, the subpoena is void.
Jeez. What about something more adversarial, like an eviction notice?
Evictions have incredibly strict timelines. If a tenant is dodging you, you might have to do a nail and mail, basically posting the notice conspicuously on the door. But the law usually says that physical posting must be immediately followed by secondary certified mailings.
And if you mess that up?
If you miss the mailing deadline by 24 hours, the judge throws the whole eviction out and the landlord has to start the month-long process all over again.
And what if it's a domestic restraining order? That's going to be intense.
Oh, absolutely. Then you're dealing with immediate law enforcement implications. Personal face-to-face delivery is mandatory because the safety stakes are so high.
Right, like, remember the scenario with Amanda in South Carolina?
Yeah.
She handles high-stakes documents. And with restraining orders, there's a huge safety element, almost like a bail situation with unpredictable targets, where you just cannot mess up the delivery where someone could get hurt.
Exactly. A substitute service like leaving it with a roommate is often completely invalid in those cases. The red tape exists because defective service strips people of their constitutional rights.
Which perfectly explains the gravity of the job.
Sure.
But that brings us to a fascinating operational hurdle. You've navigated the laws, you've served the evasive defendant, and now you have to prove to the court that you actually did it.
Right. Through an affidavit of service.
Right. You have to sign this formal affidavit swearing exactly who you served, at what time, and where. But here is the catch from the legal frameworks. In many states, this affidavit absolutely must be notarized before the court clerk will take it.
States like Georgia, Michigan, New York, South Carolina, and a few others.
Which creates a total legal paradox, right?
Yeah.
Because a commissioned notary cannot legally notarize their own signature.
No, they absolutely cannot.
Which makes sense. It would be like auditing your own tax return. It might be honest, but it's a massive conflict of interest and totally invalid. So how do you bypass this compliantly if you're a solo operator?
The analyses provide 3 main strategies. The first is building peer-to-peer networks.
Teaming up with local competition.
Exactly. You form reciprocal agreements with other local independent notaries. You notarize their process serving affidavits, they notarize yours. It creates the legal separation state law requires and keeps overhead low.
That's a great analog solution, but what if you finished a late-night serve and no one's awake to trade stamps with you?
That's where the digital solution comes in remote online notarization, or ARON. If your state allows it, you use platforms like Notarize or Notary Live right from the field.
Oh, like sitting in your car.
Exactly. You finish the serve, open your laptop in the car, and initiate a secure video call. A third-party remote notary appears, verifies your identity, watches you e-sign, and applies their digital seal on the spot.
That is incredible. And, speaking of the field, there's a lot of physical risk to the paperwork, too. Look at Omar in Michigan, who had his bag stolen out of his car while on a route. Doing it digitally via RON means the affidavit is safe in the cloud, not sitting on your passenger seat.
That's a huge advantage. And the third strategy is software routing for larger operations. Your case management software just automatically routes your signed affidavit to a third-party notary sitting back at the main office.
Okay, so we figured out how to legally prove we delivered the document. But there's a massive assumption baked in there. You can only prove you delivered it if you can actually find the person.
Which is the hardest part.
Right. And that brings us to the tech stack, because we are talking about tracking down people who are actively hiding.
This is where the industry separates the amateurs from the professionals. We're talking about professional skip tracing.
But I have to challenge this concept. Aren't these skip tracing tools just like glorified Google searches or digging through someone's Instagram? Why pay premium fees for software when the internet is free?
Because the internet you and I use is just the absolute surface layer of public data. Evasive defendants know how to hide from Google. Professionals use restricted Tier 1 databases.
What makes the database Tier 1?
It aggregates non-public info. To get access, a business owner has to undergo corporate credentialing and pass compliance audits governed by federal laws like the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act.
So they are accessing guarded financial footprints.
Precisely. They access credit header data. When you apply for a credit card, the address and phone number on that application get pulled into these systems. They even pull data from utility hookups. So if a defendant turns on the lights at a secret apartment, the database flags it instantly.
Wow, you definitely can't find that on social media. What kind of software are these professionals using?
For high-speed data, there's batch skip tracing. It has a great right-party contact rate, but its real superpower is mapping out corporate structures.
What do you mean by that?
Say you're trying to serve a landlord hiding behind 3 anonymous shell companies. Batch skip tracing can pierce that corporate veil and link a shadowy LLC directly back to the owner's actual home address.
That is invaluable for real estate litigation.
Yeah.
And what about the legacy giants?
Platforms like LexisNexis Accurant and TLOX. LexisNexis taps into over 84 billion records. They are the gold standard for deep financial checks, but they can be slower, and their pricing isn't always transparent.
I noticed a platform called Iticore getting a lot of attention in the sources, too.
Yeah, Iticore is incredibly popular. It's cloud-based, pay-as-you-go, no monthly minimums. It uses advanced AI identity graphs to fuse billions of data points to give you the most mathematically probable real-time location.
Okay, so you use Tier 1 data to find the target. But once you make the physical delivery, how do you bulletproof your documentation? A program called Serve Manager seems to be the undisputed darling of the industry here.
It really is. Serve Manager is laser-focused on the mechanics of process serving. Data shows it saves users an average of 25 minutes per single serve.
25 minutes. If you do 10 serves a day, that just handed you back over 4 hours of billable time. How does it do that?
Aggressive automation. It generates court-specific custom affidavits, but more importantly, it utilizes GPS timestamped attempt logs.
Why is the GPS aspect so critical?
Because defendants frequently lie. They'll tell a judge, "I was never served." With Serve Manager, you generate a report proving your mobile device was physically standing 3 feet from their front door at exactly 2:14 p.m. It completely neutralizes false claims.
Undeniable mathematical proof. But Serve Manager isn't the only option. The sources also compare it heavily to Crosstracks.
Right, which highlights a strategic choice. Serve Manager is brilliant if you strictly do process serving, but Crosstracks is an all-in-one case management tool.
So it handles a wider scope.
Exactly. If you plan to expand and get a private investigator license for surveillance or fraud investigations, Crosstracks is built to handle that wider investigative scope.
That makes sense. And this brings us to a critical pivot. When you have access to this heavy financial data and you're tracking down hostile people, you aren't just a paper pusher. You are taking on massive physical and financial liability. Let's talk about shielding the business and pricing it to make that risk worthwhile.
Let's start with shielding. A standard mobile notary has relatively low risk. Standard E&O errors and omissions insurance averages around $41 to $52 a month. But for a process server, dedicated E&O jumps to an average of $88 a month or just over $1,000 annually.
Which makes sense. If a notary makes a clerical error, a closing gets delayed. But if a process server misses a deadline, a multi-million-dollar lawsuit gets dismissed with prejudice.
Precisely. But there's a crucial policy nuance every operator has to understand to avoid disaster, the difference between first-dollar defense deductibles and defense and loss deductibles.
Yes, the FD versus DL deductibles. When I was reading the frameworks, that defense and loss deductible sounded like an absolute trap. Why would anyone buy a DL policy?
Because DL policies usually offer slightly lower monthly premiums. If you're a new business owner trying to cut costs, it looks very tempting, but it's a massive hidden risk.
Break down how that trap actually springs.
Under a DL policy, your deductible applies to your legal defense costs. Say you serve a volatile defendant and they file a frivolous harassment lawsuit against you personally. Under a DL policy, you have to pay your own out-of-pocket legal retainer thousands of dollars to defend yourself, up to your deductible limit, before the insurance pays a dime.
Even if the lawsuit is totally fabricated.
Exactly. It can bankrupt a small operation.
Yeah, you really need that protection. Brian in North Carolina reached out to us about someone threatening false claims on a serve. And if he didn't have that first-dollar defense, he would have been paying out of pocket just to protect his business against a total lie.
That's a perfect example. A first-dollar defense policy covers your attorney fees from the very first dollar. The insurance pays the lawyers to fight the frivolous suit, and you only pay your deductible if a judge actually orders a final judgment against you.
Spending a few extra dollars a month could literally save your business. Okay, so we're insured, we have our tracking data, we are legally compliant. Let's talk revenue. Standard notary fees are capped by the state. You might only charge $5 a stamp, but process serving.
Completely unregulated free market. You price based on market demand, geographical complexity, and urgency.
The baseline numbers in the analyses look really attractive. A standard local serve ranges from $50 to $150, and that includes up to 3 attempts, the GPS logs, and the notarized affidavit.
It's a solid baseline, but the margins explode with add-ons. If a firm needs rush service, that's an extra $50 to $100. Same-day emergency dispatch at $85 to $200.
And if the address is dead and you have to use those Tier 1 databases?
Skip tracing is billed as an additional $25 to $500 service, depending on how deep the investigation goes.
So a single complex serve could easily yield several $700. But how do you actually get these clients? You aren't putting up billboards.
No, it is strictly a B2B marketing game. You target law firm paralegals, legal assistants, office managers. They are the gatekeepers.
And one of the most powerful moves is joining NAPPS, right? The National Association of Professional Process Servers.
Arguably vital for long-term growth. It gives you access to a massive nationwide directory. A firm in Chicago needs a serve in your town, they search NAPPS first. You get out-of-state forwarding requests without spending a dime on ads.
It also provides a secure infrastructure.
Yes, the secure document trading system.
Because you can't just be sending sensitive court files over a random email. Rachel in Colorado actually mentioned this. She lost out on a big firm contract initially because she was trying to use a basic Gmail account instead of a secure trading system like NAPPS offers.
Exactly. Firms won't tolerate that. NAPPS ensures compliance and adds a massive layer of credibility.
It proves you aren't just some person with a car and a printer.
Well, we have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've seen how integrating process serving transforms a standard notary business into a high-margin legal logistics partner.
As long as you master the fragmented state laws, navigate the self-notarization conflicts, leverage tools like Serve Manager and Idicore, and protect yourself with first-dollar defense insurance.
It goes right back to our restaurant analogy. You are choosing to own that final critical mile of delivery.
But looking at the macro trends, there is a question I want to leave everyone to ponder. As courts increasingly rely on digital e-filing and RON, will the physical, aggressive knock on the door of process serving eventually be replaced entirely by digital service?
Could serving a lawsuit via email or secure DM become the norm? Or will the physical, in-person delivery of court papers always remain the ultimate, undeniable standard for due process?
That is a fascinating thought. Can you really digitize the psychological weight of being physically handed a court summons? It's definitely something for all of us to mull over. We encourage you to buy the Notary Knowledge books by Derrick Spruill and visit the Notary Knowledge website to explore these tools further. And please rate the show, subscribe, and share the podcast with others.
Yeah, keep building that professional toolkit.
And if you have questions, email your questions to Derrick at derrickspruill.com. We will try to answer as soon as possible at the end of our shows. Today's show featured exec producer Derrick Spruill, lead writer Marylyn Trotter, graphics by Montes Travis, music by Thomas Bynum, and is produced by magnificent Workz Business Solutions. Don't just be listeners of the knowledge, be doers of the knowledge. This is Notary Knowledge. Until next time.
Ready to unlock your notary potential and boost your income? It's time to move beyond basic notarizations. In Notary, Niche Navigator by Derrick Spruill, learn the most profitable specialized services. Learn to master high-demand areas like loan signings, international apostilles, and I-9 employment verifications. This essential guide offers new ideas to help you become the go-to expert in your field. Grab your copy of Notary, Niche Navigator by Derrick Spruill today and start building your empire.